Lecy Goranson, you are the original Becky from Roseanne. You are such a familiar face to so many of us who have watched TV over the decades. And I just want to go straight to this question. I'm sure you've been asked it a billion times, but talk us through how you became involved in this revival of what was once and now is again a massive smash hit show.
Well, I believe I was walking to the grocery store and I got a text from Sarah Gilbert, which seemed totally out of the blue, that said, "Would you be interested in coming back to Roseanne?" And I said, "What?" And then I said, "Yes." And then I thought, what is this going to be? You know, my mind started racing. It really was just like my mind was blown because I was thinking, what channel is it going to be on? Is it going to be single camera? Is it a new concept? What are the characters going to be doing? And what's it going to be like? So it was pretty intense, but it was exciting too. A lot of
Yeah,
unknowns.
I can imagine. And then, like, you fast forward to the first episode, and it's like as if you people never left, even though you all look a little older and you've all done all the stuff.
But we look great.
You look amazing, all of you. Like, look incredible. In fact, it's like a
Great for
competition.
our age.
Great for your age, even though you're only in your 20s, because you were obviously two when you were on the
Right.
show. Um,
Exactly.
but yeah, like it's like a competition, like who looks the best. But look, putting that aside, it was amazing to see you all. Like it was like a religious experience for me. I'm wondering what it was like for you. You were a kid pretty much on the show. Now you're not a kid. And what was it like when you went to the first table read, for example? Was that an amazing experience?
Well, I was talking about all the unknowns. And one of the big unknowns was the writing, because I had no idea what the content was going to be, what Becky was going to be doing. And a lot of people kind of got to read the script. I didn't. So when I sat down with the cast and I was with, the directors and all the writers, and we just sat down and got into it, I just felt this huge sense of relief. I felt like, oh my gosh, we're back and it's good and it's like the best of old times, and it was just, when you work with pros like, our cast and the writers, it's just really just such a blessing. I mean, who would have thought that I would feel like a princess in my 40s. But that's how I feel because I'm working with these such amazing people. And it's just, there's something really cool and beautiful about the familiarity that we have with each other, lasting so many years. We just kind of know each other so well. And it was just kind of this weird experience that not only was I present, but I was also reflecting about old times at the simultaneously. What happened for us, those of us that worked on the show earlier, was it just floods of memories, whether it was being in the set or being with each other. But it would just, between all of us, it would just be like these memories would just come flooding back, and it was really, really interesting.
It is. It's it's almost too good to be true, but it's amazing. So many shows have come back, and it's like the thing now where you have to revive big hit shows. And this could have been a complete unmitigated disaster, and it's not.
It could have been.
It could have been a shocker, but it's really not. And the fans have gone crazy. The audience has come really for this show in droves, and the critics have been pretty kind to the show. Well, what's your reaction to how the show's been received?
Well, I got to tell you that I'm doing press isn't my favorite thing, but there have been times where I've got to meet a lot of big, crazy fans. And it's just, I mean, the sheer joy coming at me is just, it's an incredible thing. It really is, because it's so genuine. And the investment is so genuine that, what am I going to do? I mean, It's wonderful. It's wonderful. And, there was some kind of controversy in terms of the show being political and, blah, 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 Trump. But it's such a minutia part of what our show is about. And I think that, our show is grounded in reality. It has pathos. I think that it's cathartic for people. I think it helps people. It's therapeutic in a way because it helps people laugh through difficult things. And I just couldn't be more proud of it.
Yeah. You mentioned the political stuff. For me as like a bleeding heart liberal, it would have been it was slightly disconcerting to see something that was a bit more balanced and not within my bubble. And I'm just being really transparent about that. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of the criticism was probably because this show was kind of showing it from both sides because it's a blue collar family. No show has ever really portrayed blue collar America as good as Roseanne has and does now. So, what are your thoughts about the criticism leveled at the show? Did you think it was a bit unfair?
Um, yes, I definitely do. It's interesting because I wrote an article. I anticipated a lot of questions directed towards me about all this. So I was sneaky and I wrote an article for an online magazine called Dame, which is a feminist, has a feminist angle. And I think that I was driven to write the article, not only just in anticipation, but because I had already read some previous criticism of the show before the show was even on, and I thought to myself, first of all, we shot all the shows and I left going, this is amazing. I can't wait for this to be released in the universe. I'm so proud of this. And then when I started reading these really kind of scathing, particularly some feminist articles, it really hit me in a maybe a more vulnerable place, because normally I read those kind of articles and I'm like, yeah, women and whatever. And I just thought, instead, I thought, you got to give it a chance, to comment on art before you see it is just, I don't think it's fair, based on heresy or rumor. And I think that what's really interesting is that since the show, has been released, people now can really analyze it in a much more interesting and provocative way. But, I think the show has always been something that has promoted discussion, cultural discussion, familial discussion. And that's what we like. We want that to, I think that's what good art does. It doesn't leave society in a stasis. It kind of ups everyone's game.
Yeah, it absolutely does. I want to go back in time, if possible. So to think back to when you were on the original show as Becky
Okay.
Classic. I'm wondering, you have a unique story, and that is you had to say goodbye to a character that you really became your own, obviously because you moved on to do other things in your life, and have another actor take her on, who you're actually now working alongside in the new show, Sarah Chalk. She's an amazing actress as well. But what was it like back then to say goodbye to Becky for a while?
At the time I was, I had a full-time job in my teenage years for, I guess it had been about 5 years straight. And one thing that I recall now that I'm back on the show is how rigorous it really is. I mean, it's very much, it's body and soul and really hard work. And it's 24/7 and it's your whole life. And, we did 9 this last go. We were going to do 8. They gave us an extra one. We were doing 24,
Yeah.
we were doing a lot of shows. And I grew up outside of Chicago. I'm not a Hollywood kind of person. And I felt like I had sacrificed a lot to do the show, a lot of my time, my childhood. you know, relationships. And I just felt like it was like my whole being was crying out for some kind of normalcy, and just to kind of just go to college and kind of be present there and be present in my academics and be present socially and, you know, be present having fun, of course.
Yeah.
But, you know, those were things that, you know, you can't really do when you have a full-time job. So, you know, but I didn't feel guilty, but I did feel sad. You know, I approached each person and told them individually that I was leaving, and that was really hard. And I told the writers, you know, make sure Becky, you know, still has integrity. That was important to me then. So,
Wow. Yeah, it was a huge part of the show. And the other part that I remember most vividly about Becky is that you were in an episode that is still to this day. It's one of the greats. It was the only time Roseanne was ever nominated at the Emmys for writing. Amy Sherman Palladino wrote it, A Bitter Pill to Swallow, and it focused around Becky and Roseanne and about birth control. And back then, that was kind of a controversial thing to do. Now, these days, we just talk about everything openly. It's so different now.
yeah.
Can you take us back to that time when you were much younger and you know, a young actress playing something that was kind of a little bit out of the ordinary, out of the box, and the reaction that you received at the time, if you can remember?
Well, you know, as I was a teenager myself, um, who had a difficult time, you know, dialoguing with my own parents about a lot of things, which is so normal. Um, you know, it was a sensitive thing for me. But one thing that I kind of learned as an actor through the show is that, you know, my job is to be vulnerable, and the more vulnerable I can be, sometimes the better. But they showing a lot of old clips of the show because of the new show. And I remember seeing that scene, which was so beautifully written, when I, you know, broached the subject about birth control. And I see myself so vulnerable. I mean, really so vulnerable. And it just makes me think that that's probably how I really felt at the time with my own mother, talking about something like that, you know. And I just think it's just such a lovely part of our show that we go to those really kind of awkward, sensitive places, and then there's the comic relief.
Yeah.
But you know, there's so many women, there's so many mothers and daughters that have approached me and said that because of that show, they watched it together, that they had a real conversation about it afterwards. And I think, you know, what a wonderful thing.
Yeah, that's so cool. So cool. So finally, I know that I'm sure, are you one of the people that have signed on for season two?
Yes.
Oh,
Should
great.
I? I should have had a pregnant pause and then
I
said,
know, like, because the
well,
anticipation, because
yeah.
yeah, so Bruce Helford mentioned that everyone signed on for one season to see how it would go, and because everyone's so happy, they've all decided to come back. So that's pretty cool. But would you keep coming back if they asked you to keep doing it, or do you think season two is it, or you won't say?
Um, well, a lot can happen, but I feel like if, you know, if the quality of writing and the actors are still there, I can't see why not. I mean, I now am very invested in these characters, not just Becky, all of them. And I'm really curious about their journeys. I really am. And you know, there's certainly a selfish side of being an actor. You're kind of consumed in your own emotions and whatever. But I can tell you that as we were shooting all the shows, there were times where I would kind of wake up on a Saturday and I would think about Dan, and I would think about Jackie, and I would think about Roseanne and, you know, Darlene. And it was really real for me. I mean, it's like a real investment and a real connection to the characters. You know, I mean, as an actor, I'm connected to the characters, but on the outside, just as a fan, you know, I can't wait to see where everyone's path is going.
Yeah, it's very exciting. Lecy, thank you so much for your time. Congratulations on a very funny revival of Roseanne. We hope to see the show all over the Emmys in a few months' time.
It was such a pleasure. Thank you so much.